Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the LEC European Tour. My name is Will Hall. I am joined by Matej, Big Z Zatlkaj, and we are taking you through round 4 of standard action here in Naples at the regional finals. A lot to go through. So, starting off, the future rounds. Where are we at the minute? Maybe things can get confusing the way it's all lined up at the minute. So, we are there, round 2. This is the finals of round 2. We have round 3 coming up, which is going to be in Athens. That season is Pioneer. This season is Standard. The one after, it's been announced it was going to be Modern. Ooh. So we're going to have a Modern season as well. Hopefully with Modern Pro Tour, fingers crossed. But how can you at home come and play in these events? How can you qualify for this? Well, if you want to go traveling, come to Prague. It is Modern format. If you qualify in that in the top 36 in the day 2, you'll get invites to Athens. If you're top 8, you get your flight and accommodation paid for, plus all the other money and the trophies and stuff that come with all that.
Yeah, and if you don't like Modern, you just want to play Sealed, there's a big tournament on Sunday that you can also, where the top 8 qualifies for Athens as well. So, you can pick your poison.
Exactly. There's also a couple that haven't been announced yet for Athens. So there's a couple more that are going to be leaning into season 4. They haven't been announced yet, so make sure if you haven't, go hit the follow button on the old Twitter, get all the updates on there of all the future events that are going to happen. But let's go back to today. This is the finals. This is the weekend that everyone's been trying hard to get. It is Standard as the format. We had 471 players turn up today, all battling out, trying to make day 2. We've worked out that they need 18 points or more to lock themselves into day 2. Then they'll be able to battle out for the more money, the prizes, the invites, but we'll talk about more about that later on. Which 2 decks are we going to see and which players are piloting them this round, Mr. Big Z Zatlkaj?
So we went with players who are at 3 wins and 0 losses because we're heading into round 4. And actually we went for Mark Peral, who's on Esper Legends. But he's facing off against someone that you all really wanted to see on camera.
Yes, I've been trying to get the person on camera. Yeah. Francisco on the mono blue tempo. You know what I mean? We're looking at the standings at the minute and how it's fitting out. There seems to be a lot of Esper, a lot of the red-black X decks making their ways to the top. So we're trying to get some of the spiciest stuff in there. And this mono blue tempo deck has been crushing it, 3-0. And a lot of the deck techs I did yesterday with players, they said this is the matchup they don't want to play. They hope to not get paired against these mono blue players.
Yeah, mono blue is a very tricky deck to play against. It can be pretty fun to play because you get to see a lot of cards all the time, and you you do the things that good blue players like to do, right? Draw cards, counter spells, and then finish off the game quickly. And that's what the deck does with Haughty and Tolarian Terrors and all these things. So definitely, look at Mark Peral, already in my book, has a huge plus, because you might not notice it, but there's a Matej Zatlkaj token sitting.
Here we go.
And I haven't seen that token until I sorted my cards a couple of weeks ago, and I found a stack of those tokens.
Who's doing the humble brags now, my friend? Who's doing the humble brags now?
Mark Peral quickly went #1 on my players to watch list. Really unexpected, to be fair, because there's not that many circulating around. Well, anyway,
I'd like one. Just saying, if you got any floating around, man, I'll take one off you. I look at that sign. But yeah, it looks like both players are taking a mulligan here.
Yeah, let's talk about Francisco really quickly. Like, his version of the deck is really interesting. He's playing, we've seen a few versions of mono blue tempo. Some of them used to play Ledger Shredder, then moved to Delver's Secrets, but he's playing none of that. He's just playing 4 Djinns, 4 Terrors, and he's playing a version with 3 Flow of Knowledge, which, again, it's a card that you see between 2 and 4 of. So, but 22 islands, as usual, and he's doing really well. And I'll tell you a secret, I looked at the results. Mono blue is doing terribly. So he's the only one.
He's the sole survivor.
He's the only one that's doing really well in the tournament. So we'll see if it lasts for a few more turns.
When I was speaking to these mono blue players that are playing around, they basically said, "I've got the best deck if I win the game in the dice roll. If I lose a dice roll, I'm like 20% to win. If I win the dice roll, I'm like 80% to win." Yeah. So how much does that sort of factor in with this sort of build? Obviously, he's not playing, as we said, the more traditional version. So maybe he's actually cracked the code. Maybe this is the version that mono blue deck should be playing. As it looks like we're taking another mulligan here for Mark.
Yeah, I think just mulligan to 5 for Mark, and I think Francisco's on 6 cards. Yeah, he has 4 islands, a couple spells, should be fine. Mulligans are huge, of course. Like, end play draw is even more important, I think, for the mono blue deck. And we already talked about Grixis being like kind of like a middle of the road kind of deck. It can beat everything, right? It kind of plays the role where it doesn't really have too many bad matchups because it can do a little bit of everything. Mono blue tempo has really polarizing matchups where it's kind of sometimes you like Azorius soldiers, you just almost can't win. Like mono red, maybe you can win, but then like other matchups like mono white mid range, it's much easier for.
So why would we pick up this blue deck in this meta, in this format?
It's very difficult to play against. It can fight with Grixis depending on what kind of build they bring, especially if they're too heavy on the cut down and the Brotherhood's ends. You can get them because none of your creatures die to either of those cards.
Yep, seen.
So that's why it can be a good metagame choice.
And we spoke about this, how those cards have kind of had an uptick because of the green-white aggro decks that we see, the toxic ones now. So they're kind of trying to prey on this. It looks like we've kept a 3 land hand, maybe 4, plus I think that's a consider and the one that returns 3 or less. You'll help me with that in a second. You scry one. 1 blue, instant, return a type creature to their hand.
Oh, Fading Hope.
Thank you, there you go.
No worries. Just say unsummon.
Okay, they unsummon with a scry. As it looks like we've got a keep here.
Yeah, no, but Mark Pearl's on Esper Legends, and I would say a pretty okay beat. A bunch of one-offs that are sometimes okay to see, but I would say a pretty typical build with 27 lands. With mulligan 5 hurts, but he can get back into the game very quickly, especially if he lands something like Italia turn 2. That's the best card that can play, especially against the mono blue deck.
Because we can get in under, and that is exactly what we have. A turn 2 Thalia hits the battlefield. It's going to start taxing these in response. We are going to have to see that consider come down. Do we want to put it in the grave or do we want to go to hand? It's going to the grave. We don't need any more lands.
Yeah, too many lands already.
And it looks like we drew another island off the top. This is not what we want to see on the mono blue side. We want to be tough. Jeez.
It's could call it like mono blue lands.
Someone turn the tap off. The absolute flood on that side of the battlefield is horrendous. And this is not what we want. We don't want to be. We want to start with some creatures and kind of keep them around. At this stage,
at this rate, I think that I think a Gix is going to come down, and I'm already worried that Francisco might have to pull the trigger. Oh no, but still Adeline.
Adeline's a good one. And we're playing, we can't have this countered by 2 mana counter spells here right now, purely because we've got the attacks because of that Thalia. They're going to do this in response before combat, so we don't end up getting a token generated. But
this is such a bad spot for the mono blue deck, though, because if you already have to spend your Fading Hubs this early into the game to not fall behind too much, the mono blue deck is really bad at coming back from behind. The only kind of big card you have to do that is Flow of Knowledge, and that costs 5. So to get that against these sort of like disruption-y, aggressive decks, it's very difficult.
So yeah, this is it's not looking too great for Francisco here. Basically, what he did wrong is he didn't turn up with the big Z Zatlkaj token, which is clearly lucky as you can get. So make sure you can get your hands on them, ladies and gentlemen, if you manage to find them.
The game changer.
It clearly is. I'm on Molder 5 here, and you wouldn't know anything different about it. As another free drop comes down.
Gix this time. You have more Praetor. That resolves. Okay, that can mean 2 cards. Oh, look at that! I'm swinging.
You're on the battlefield.
Oh, Mark Pearl is gonna get the biggest high five of his life.
You're gonna go and sign it for him.
Yeah. But nice, it's already the Adeline is a 3/4, and yeah, Francisco. Even if he had a Fading Hope in his hand again, it was just like it would just stem the bleeding. But now he's gonna impulse, I think.
I was about to say, like, what sort of ways have we got? Any ways of getting creatures off the battlefield? Or is it all just unsummon effects? There's no obviously mono blue, not famous for its kill spells or damage-based spells. So maybe now we're falling too far behind. We've got nothing on the battlefield. We've only got ways to bounce them, which kind of. Yeah. We are a tempo deck at the end of the day. We want to have a creature on the battlefield and then kind of press that as our advantage. Right now we are flooding hard. We don't have creatures on the battlefield. I'm not going to call it. I don't like to call games too early, but it's very much advantage bar to the left-hand side of your screen for Mark Peril here.
By the way, it was a Thirst for Discovery. It's just the alternate art kind of confused me. But yeah, Thirst for Discovery is current island. And I think the way Francisco can win these sort of games or matchups is like if he lands that early Tolarian Terror or the Hotijin, where the Legend deck doesn't always have an answer to an early creature. There's Go for the Throat, right? Like there's few answers. Okay, speaking of.
So we play this now. We had the option to play it last turn, side against it. So we're doing it this wide because it's got a bit of Pyromancer, not Pyromancer effect. It makes everything cost 1 less, right?
Yeah, so instant sorceries come 1 less, and this with a blue mana up, this means it can be Scatter Ray, make disappear. It can be something else. But here comes the.
Valley is going to tax that though.
Yeah. And I think the more important thing for Mark Pearl is that he actually has a Genjo in his hand, so he can play out the Skrelv very easily, add more creatures to the board. It's going to grow Adeline to huge proportions as well.
She's currently got 5 power, so that's a 5/4 win. We had a combat. She will grow from the token being generated. I wonder if he's got a second one.
Yeah, another.
Come on, give us a second one. Give us a second one. Let's go.
I don't think he has one. Just one. Look, he only has one.
Okay, we got the 6/4 coming in. It's a couple 1/1s and the 3/3. But then when they deal damage, we can draw cards from this. Is that correct?
Exactly. So Gix says that whenever a creature you control deals damage to an opponent, can pay 1 life and draw a card. But I think now we're going to see a block, and Ganjo is going to blow out Francisco. And I think that this game's not going to last for too long.
And the Ganjo's power is equal to sorcery instance in the graveyard. There's currently 3 of them, so it's now a 3/4. Is that correct?
The Jin is a 3/4.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So that's why it blocks the Gix. But I think we're going to see the Ganjo cast off of the Plaza of Heroes.
Oh, it's just so rough.
Yeah.
That's going to do 4 damage. There's not really much we can. I suppose we can pay a 1 mana protection spell.
Yeah, that's why maybe you can see, oh, Ganjo, why is he paying only 1 mana? Well, if you're playing Esper Legends, it gets cheaper. That's one of the biggest reasons to play this deck.
Yeah, there's an advantage to this. There's no reason why we're just flexing, playing all these like legends / commanders in one deck. We do make all these the Tamagawa lands work out for our advantage.
And now the Fading Hope bounces the Adeline, but the Jin is still going to die, and like there's still damage going to be dealt. So I mean, it's Francisco is trying to make it happen, but okay, there's a judge being involved as well. I think it's probably explaining that Francisco is doing the Fading Hope in response to the Ganjo activation.
So I think they're talking about the tax effects here, right? So Thalia makes it cost 1 more.
Yeah.
Jin makes it cost 1 less, but like can it cost 1 less? Because how does this interaction work?
Yeah. So Fading Hope just costs 1, so they kind of negate each other out. But I think the judge was confused because they saw a Thalia and a Fading Hope. It's like, but this should cost 2. But it's like, but the Jin makes it 1 cheaper.
So why would we do the unsummon effect here after, like during combat instead of before? Because now another token's been generated.
I mean, it's a tough spot as is. Like,
oh yeah, this is not. We're not in a great spot on the right hand side of your screens here, ladies and gentlemen.
I think it would make more sense to cast it before going to attacks, but that would just mean that Mark wouldn't probably attack at all. So I don't know.
A lot of lands still left in that hands there for our mono blue player.
Finally, Tolarian Terror for Francisco, that can come up the board, but it might be too late, especially when a Skrelv gets active. It gets annoying really quickly.
We see it obviously popping up in the green-white toxic decks because it makes sense. It can make it unblockable and it can give it toxic. In this deck, it's going to just make like Adeline unblockable, and as we say on this battlefield right now, that's going to be a good 6-7 power, and that's going to be able to finish the game really quickly. Also, absolutely shines in a deck that's only 1 color. Really easy to get your attackers through with a Skrelv on the battlefield.
Yeah, Skrelv's a great addition to this archetype. I mean, in general, Esper Legends suddenly became one of the big players in the metagame because it got Darkslick Shores and Seachrome Coast, which improved the mana significantly, so it wasn't as painful as it was before. And then on top of that, the Skrelv as a cheap legend that you can cast early that actually protects your other creatures is really good. That's, I think, in general now in the metagame, the best play you can make is turn 1 Skrelv, turn 2 Thalia, turn 2 Rafine. It's all the creatures protect each other. They make everything more expensive. It's just it can be a nightmare to deal with. Yeah,
speaking of like Tolf, who's also on the Esper Legends deck, he's like, if I can just curve off 1, 2, 3, I feel like his biggest weakness is his mana. He was saying his mana is the biggest issue. If that plays skip ball, he feels like his deck's basically untouchable. And I did just see him. I think he is still at the top table, so he must be having a pretty good weekend.
And this is an interesting play. So now after replaying the Adeline and going to combat, doesn't attack with the Thalia, but then uses the Skrelv with Phyrexian mana activation on the Gix to give it like Hexproof from blue and make it unblockable.
So why are we using the Phyrexian mana here and not just tapping one of our white sources and saving our life total here?
Either wants to cast something after combat, like a Guardian of New Benali that he has in his hand, or wanted to keep a mana maybe for something like Otawara. He put away the right token there, not my token. It's very nice of him.
Got you.
Yeah.
So we're having a quick read here. Obviously, every time a creature deals combat damage, we can get lose 1 point of damage and draw a card. There is other text on there where we can start filtering it through.
Yep.
We'll see if we can get that up on the screen for you all.
Yeah. So we've seen already Gix a couple of rounds before when we were when Gabriel and Steve also on the Esper Legends deck was getting to 7 mana and actually using the secondary ability of Gix to get some sweet hits from the opponent's deck.
Trying to hit an Atraxa off the top of your opponent's deck is pretty sweet from this side.
But the most important bit is is the first ability, where whenever your creature hits, you draw a card, you lose life, and I think another. Oh, now we're Rafine after combat as well. Yeah,
More land off the top.
yeah, very difficult. Oh, a thirst for meaning, thirst for discovery
Fair
rather.
discovery. Draw 3, discard 2, unless one of them is a land. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that a land will be getting discarded, but they can't get back into it. Going to scoop them up, and that is going to mark. It's going to take down at game 1. So
pretty comprehensive, but that's what happens. Even off of a mulligan to 5, the turn to Thalia is so good
even
against mono blue.
On the other side, there was a lot of land on the other side. That was real flood. Like that was not. Oh, maybe drew 1 or extra 2 land. That was like 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 2 land, more land on the other side of the battlefield. But how are we going to reassure this game too? How is Mark going to be like? Well, I'm going to take this match down 2-0. What in this sideboard do you like?
I think Spellpeer is going to make a showing for Mark. Probably not much else. I think already the main deck's pretty well tuned. There's none of these deal with any of. I mean, maybe Disdainful Stroke could be a possibility, but even like Dickens' Flow of Knowledge and Terror. But I'm not too hopeful there. And on the other side of it, it's not. It doesn't get much better, I would say, after Cyber. There's Consuming Tide, which can bounce big boards, but it's also pretty expensive. Ledger Shredder can be a decent creature to get on the board. It's actually a great blocker, and maybe
not great if it gets bounced though without a Warrow. That's like your biggest concern about that.
Yeah,
you build it up with 3 or 4 counters on, they just bounce it back to your hand. You're like,
Or even in the early game, even if it grows once, like it gets killed by a Ganjo and has problems when Rafine's on the board and you make something much bigger. But I imagine he could try to bring those in. But also on the other, he could also just try to make sure that he keeps the deck very similar to what it is now, and just hope to land an early Tolarian Terror because he needs that one for block purposes, and then try to win with a quick chain. It's gonna have a much better time on the play rather than on the draw though. So
we'll see how he gets on. So realistically, he needs to do. I think he took a mold to 6, took a bit of a risky one, kept a very land heavy, and then just it happened. He flooded out.
Yeah,
is what it is. That happens in Magic the Gathering. Things out of your control. But maybe do you think we should be mulligan more aggressively to try and get our creatures early, or at least ways to cycle through our deck quicker? Which I suppose is the downside to this deck. If I'm going through my deck and I'm using these considers, etc., eventually I am just going to fill my hand for the land. You know what I mean? It's kind of the living end scenario. Like I'm either going to cycle until my hand's full of land, or I'm not going to have any more cyclers left, and potentially I'm going to flood them. But in that deck, modern, more powerful things happen. In this deck, not as powerful. If they say, well, says Pathali is the big one that you were talking about. If they manage to drop that on turn 2 and we don't have the answer, which we could have now, we're on the play. We could be. And why is that token still on the battlefield as well? Why is that still out?
I don't.
Did you set me up here?
Full disclosure, I don't know Mark. Like maybe I've met him before, but I don't know him. I have no idea where he has a token from.
And now he's going to be over the moon that you're casting on his game, and he's currently 1 up.
Personally, I feel slightly embarrassed because I don't know what to say about it. But on the other hand, I feel a little bit of jealousy coming from your side of the table.
I just need my own token. That's what I need. Some people might not know about these tokens. How were these tokens a thing? Like, how did this come about? Did you randomly just pay someone to take a photograph and make loads of tokens and put them in the the MTG world, or how did people used to get these back in the day?
No, there was a time where I was heading up a European-based a team of players that we were testing together for Pro Tours and exchanging information for GPs and for a few Grand Prix back in the day. The organizer decided to make a set of tokens because we were doing some activities on Friday. Like you could challenge us to play. We were doing like a seminar, and we were giving out these tokens.
That's why they call you Big Z. You see what I mean? Like all this experience and knowledge, people want to use it, and people want your token. I want your token now.
I have to find this. I'll bring it to you for the next tournament.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
If you want a Big Z token as well, chat, make sure you make it aware in chat. Let's show that the Big Z.
Tag me on Twitter. I'll make sure to bring enough for everyone. No worries. They're not that great, but I do remember that I was pretty insistent that I want to be a human advisor.
Okay.
Because I was organizing these pro players, and
makes sense. I have to spend the weekend, seeing what you do behind the scenes and all of it. That makes perfect sense.
Thank
So
you.
people are like wondering what's going on right now. So they're looking at deck lists. This is an open deck list tournament. Players before the game and during sideboarding get 3 minutes to review your opponent's deck list, see what's in it, see what one-offs you need to play around, and what's anything spicy going on in there. How is this sometimes an advantage or a disadvantage towards what decks you're going to pick?
It's actually really funny that you bring it up because it's exactly what I wanted to mention about the mono blue deck. It can be very difficult to play against because like they could have spell pierce, or they could have scatter ray, or they could or if you decide to play around these reactive spells, they'd be like, okay, so I'll thirst for discovery instead, right? The deck plays so much at instant speed, it can be really difficult to play around like the many instants that the deck can present. I think in general Francisco's list is pretty streamlined, but I faced off against a mono blue list which have even a couple of more one-offs, and then it's like a complete guessing game, and you can get easily blown out by that one-off in that particular deck. Suddenly it's spell pierce. You played around something. You made sure that you played not your creature into make disappear, but then you get your Fable of the Mirror Break, a spell pierce. Like it's all these things.
And you see that a lot at like higher level tournaments and events, right? Where everyone you're thinking of every play your opponent could make and how you can counter that. It is just almost like a big game of chess. But on this level, you think of everything. How can I best play around that if they do have it? They might not have it, but what's my best scenario? How my best outcome? And that's where you got to risk size up the risk to reward. Is it worth me trying to take that shot? 'Cause if they have it, I get blown out. If they don't have it, I shoot ahead basically in this matchup.
If there's one kind of piece of advice that I have if you're playing against as we see in Mulligan, so I have ample time to talk about this. I've played against the matchup quite a bit, and what I've learned is that you have to pick your spot. Like if you have a hand that where you feel like you need to resolve some of your spells to win, you can try to play around like the stuff like make disability stuff where you can pay the extra mana. However, I always recommend that if your opponent has 3 mana, you should definitely try to play a spell so that he doesn't play Thirst for Discovery, because that's gonna like really power him up. Another important key point is turn 5. If they have 5 mana up and they have potentially Flow of Knowledge in their hand, that's the time where you want to play a spell so that he doesn't play the Flow of Knowledge. Like you want to really play something powerful,
it's not
so
only
you deal delay. So there's always these spots that you have to figure out, especially if you're playing a slower deck yourself. You also have your own counter spells like your own negates or disdainful strokes or things like this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Making your opponent use mana in the turns that they realistically would like to curve off, make them use like a 2 mana removal spell instead of casting a Fable or something that they want to do to progress their board, making them react to your board because otherwise they're going to fall 5 behind from it.
Exactly.
I like that. Makes loads of sense, and that's why we got you in the booth. You know what I mean? All that expert knowledge is seeping out of you.
That's why I play a lot before I cast, because I really want to get to know the metagame, the decks, and everything. And I think Mono Blue is a really interesting deck. It has clear weaknesses and strength, but it can be a good metagame shout.
And we're off to the races. Both players starting with 1 untapped land each, as we see a Consider at the end of turn. He likes that card. That one's going to go into the hand. I'm going to draw 4 turns. So we did keep 7 on this side. We've got a 6 on the other side for Mark.
Yeah, he did keep that land. I think this time Francisco Sanchez has a land light hand, but that should mean that he'll be able to, if there's a Thalia coming down, he can scatter ray it. But it's a Guardian of New Benalia. Not a legend, but still a pretty powerful card that the legend deck is running, because one of the main, I wouldn't say issues, but one of the main things is that the 2 mana creatures, like after Thalia and Denik, like the 2 mana legends are getting quickly worse. We've seen people play something like Ludovic, Necrogenius, which doesn't really do much. And so, we see sometimes Raven Man, Guardian of Benalia. I've seen Suspicious Stowaways in the 2 slots. So just trying to fill out that curve. And speaking of curve,
I say, there we are. He got bounced back in a turn, and now that one's going to get countered. So we're kind of playing into blue plan. We need a creature on the battlefield to start pressing this advantage. But, keeping the 1-for-1 so far, they'll be happy with this.
Yeah, big problem, no 4th land for Francisco, and he has a Thirst for Discovery in his hand. And this is kind of the problematic spot. You want to draw, when you play the Thirst in these spots, you want to draw like 2-3 islands off the top. But if you just draw 1, you don't want to discard it because you want to play it, and then you have to discard 2 spells. He's going to go for it.
Tell me how this works. Doing this main deck, what sort of information does this give away? It
looks
like 3 islands off the top.
It's exactly the kind of Thirst for Discovery you want to do, because now he wants to play the 4th land so he can keep playing his cards. Shields are down now a little bit, so Mark is likely to resolve some sort of spell. But with the card advantage, Francisco might be able to claw his way back and play Haymaker on his own turn, like a Tolarian Terror or Hortigin. So
what's like a big Haymaker Mark could play here?
Shieldred.
Probably just slamming a Shieldred here would be pretty good.
Would be great. Yeah, he has double Otawara. He has the Gix, and
I do see a Shieldred in
yeah,
hand. That's the alt art one. Let's see
yeah,
if he chooses to go along with you.
I mean, he wants to maximize mana because if he plays Shieldred now, even if Francisco has an answer, I think Mark can play 2 creatures next turn. But there is the Fading Hope, no Scribe because Shieldred costs 4 mana.
Do you know the problem with Shieldred?
Tell me.
It does not make big Z's as high tokens. That's the problem with Shieldred. We found a weakness in its armor.
I don't think that's a particular issue here, but
we're going to put that island to the bottom. We don't need that. We've got enough for them now.
Yeah, but he keeps drawing lands now, Francisco. It doesn't mind too much. I think he has another Thirst for Discovery. He's going to play the Tolarian Terror, which is only going to cost 1 mana.
That's exactly what he wants to be doing here, right?
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. And now we know that with the Rafine already gone, Shieldred can make another appearance, but it's going to be Thalia first.
So Thalia, I think we're going to get in response first for knowledge.
Thirst for Discovery.
Sorry, thank you.
To be fair, there's a lot of thirst.
There is a lot of thirst.
There's also Thirst of Epiphany, I think. So it can get confusing.
You can get pretty thirsty in these decks. It's fine. I got you.
Indeed.
Okay, that's going to go to the graveyard. We're ditching the island, so we get to keep the 2 in hand.
So now Mark can replay the Guardian of New Benalia.
So why are we doing... Well, we had the option here. We could play the 2/2 drops, which looks like we might be doing, or we could play the Shieldred again. What's the reason behind playing the 2/2 drops?
I think he wants to get the Thalia on board to kind of slow down the number of spells that Mark can cast. But with Tolarian Terror down, he's not going to have any pressure. Especially with the way the game has developed. You saw being on the play was such a huge advantage. If now, I was just about to say, if he now plays a Hotijin, then it's nearly game over because it's already pretty big. It's at least 6 power, and he has still 3 mana open. So
yeah, I think it's 7 power now with what we've got on the battlefield currently. And so this is what we want to do. Right, we've got our threats on the battlefield. Now we just got to kind of disrupt the other side of the battlefield. The Thalia is being negated now because we've got the Djinn on the battlefield, so none of our cards are taxed. But on the other side, the Legends side, we do have everything taxed as Shieldred comes down.
So but it's gonna get Scatter Rate.
Yep, get rid of it.
It's still, it's cost 2 now. Yep. Again, they have to check. It's like, oh, Thalia makes it more expensive. Oh, but Djinn makes it cheaper. So yeah, it's 2 mana.
And we've still got enough mana
and 1 mana
to consider.
The spells cost as much mana now as they should.
As they should.
With Thalia and Hotijin on the board.
So I think that brings it to a 9 power for the Djinn.
It's pretty big. 8 or 9, yeah. And there's also another Fading Hope in hand.
Yeah,
So this game is locked up.
You calling it? You calling it now?
Yeah,
okay,
pretty confident.
He's called it. He's called it. He thinks
8, 9.
Doing a little count here.
You're right. Yeah.
9. We can make it a 10. Make it 11. If we
no need to rush. I don't think there's any need to rush. I think Francisco can attack. He could attack with both creatures.
But he's got lethal, right? We bounce both. Bounce both back to.
If he has another Fading Hope, yes.
Yeah, I believe that's he's got another one.
And if he does have it, he's slow rolling. Yeah, so he could. There could be something for 1 mana potentially, but
we don't have access to things like Path to Exile or anything along those lines in this one. We're going to check the graveyard just to make sure, because 15 is a high life total, but it just has to have at least 10 spells in there, and he classically does. So we are taking this to a game 3. That's Francisco leveling everything up.
And you know what made all the difference? Of course, being on the play. It is so huge, right?
Well, I said this at the start. My blue players, they told me if they're on the play, they feel like favored about 80%. If they're on the draw, they reckon it's about 20%.
Yeah, I mean and I'm just agreeing with you that you made a great point earlier. And
I'm learning from the best. That's how I'm learning from the best.
From the players at the tournament, not from me. There's so many good players here. It's crazy. I
fanboy still over. I'm like, oh my god, it's Captain Steve over there. You know what I mean? It's still fanboy, and I can go talk to them, have conversations with them. But going back to what we've got here, blue tempo. We didn't see. Did you see any of these cards coming out that match? It just doesn't look good, does it? There's nothing here that I'm looking at, especially after that. Cool. I just realistically needed to win that dice roll.
Yeah, it might be a bit different now on the draw, right? But it's nothing. I think the spell piercers are gonna go out anyway. So if there's cards that Francisco's bringing in, he's just taking out those cards and bringing in something else. But in this deck, we also didn't see much. I think spell pierce definitely making an appearance for Mark, but he also can't really sideboard out. Probably the AOs are a bit too expensive. Not sure about Toulouse either. Lauren for sure is going to out because there's no artifact enchantment. So it's just adjusting slightly, cutting a couple cards, adding a few more. Nothing too major. I think, yeah, should be fine.
We'll see if we can go back down to the tables then. Looks like the players are just finishing the shuffle up. Hopefully, no more mulligans are going to happen in this matchup. Poor Mark on that side. I think he's had a mulligan both games now.
Yeah. The mulligan's rough, but I think Esper Legends can do pretty well if their player is on the play. Like it can still curve out pretty well. You don't need that many cards. You just need the few that are really impactful,
well,
right?
Yeah,
like
a lot of the counter magic on the other side is like 2 mana, right? So, but we can get a Thalia in underneath that.
That's
taxes
perfect.
it.
Yeah.
It's exactly what Mark's going to want to do. Maybe he knows that, and that's what he's going to mulligan towards. Maybe that's what he's been mulligan towards. Actually having keepable hands, but he's like, no, Thalia is really important in this matchup. I need to try and hit that. And how important, or how do you size those sort of things up when it's open deck list? I know what I'm playing against. I know what my key cards are in this matchup. I know which ones aren't great, especially game one. Like, how do you decide, okay, this is a perfectly keepable opening 7. I just don't think it's good in this matchup. I feel like my key card is a Thalia. Will you sideboard down or mulligan down to 6, maybe potentially 5? At what point do you start hindering yourself with trying to hit your big bombs?
I think for the Esper Legends deck especially, it's all about like what kind of curve do I have? Like if I have, let's say, a 2-mana Adenic into, like a Gix, it's probably too slow, right? Because it's very likely that the Gix will get countered, and the Denic's just going to hit for 2. It's very slow. But if I have the rest of my hand, if I have good mana, and the rest of my hand, like I have like a Sheoldred or maybe like something else to play, like maybe I'm more inclined to keep the 7. But ultimately, like if your hand is too slow, I'm probably going to try to mulligan into Thalia.
And looks like Mark is taking over mulligan. Unfortunately for him, that is going to be potentially his 4th mulligan of the game. But we'll see if we can keep an opening 6 here.
Yeah, I mean, from Francisco, he's surely happy if he has 7 in his opening hand, but he can still get super punished by specific draws, right? Like by the Thalias and whatnot. And the mono blue deck can really sometimes it can struggle. It can really scupper itself.
Oof, is this a land light hand, or have we got 2? No, we got 2 lands.
And there's a go for the throat as well. He kept it in, and like it's good if your opponent has like an early gen or maybe a terror. But it's also like a card that's not proactive. Like you only really need it when you are already winning, or you want to, or the game is even. That's why he's really thinking. I think
Spell Pierce,
go for the throw. Rafine.
And mana to cast it. So we've got the mana. We've got a bit of a curve going on.
It was close. I think I would have mulligan as well. I think his mana was okay, but his hand was too reactive.
So I was about to ask you, what's the reason why we look? To me, that looked like we had a 1-drop, or something to cast on turn 1, something to cast on turn 2, something to cast on 3.
He would just go like land, and then go, and then third land Rafine. That would get countered, and he just almost lost on the spot.
Who does it favor if both players just go land, go?
The mono blue deck. It loves. Yeah, it just needs. We do call it mono blue tempo, but it's tempo-ish from the sense that it's trying to keep the tempo of the game like even, so that it can use its card advantage spells and its huge kind of beaters to turn the tide of the game very quickly. So it's not like a Grixis mid-range, which kind of tends to bleed you out over the game.
Another thing about Francisco, he wasn't actually qualified for this weekend until he turned up yesterday and managed to qualify in the last
Good for him.
qualifier. So, he's absolutely on a tear, managed to make top 16 yesterday. So, if you don't know, before the finals, we always have a last chance qualifier on the Friday. And top 16, I think there was just shy of 200 players turned up for yesterday. The top 16 all got invites to play today.
Nice.
Francisco was one of them, and he decided to use that to his maximum advantage and not drop a game so far today. Going into this game 3, looking at Mark taking a mulligan, potentially down to 5.
Yeah, he's keeping a hand which is not super good, I don't think. But at least I think he's going to be able to play a 2-drop.
Touching that as big Z Zatlkaj token, trying to get some luck off it. I love to see it. Come on. Throw that luck down him. Also, another one we're doing this weekend, just we actually adapted this to the Pro Tour. There's my humble bag. Is when players take mulligans, we're putting dice on top of their deck before they draw their first card, telling you how many cards they've gone down to. Mainly to help us, but at home you can also understand why people are putting dice on top of their deck or not.
Yeah, so there's a Guardian Nubenali, so at least Mark was able to play a 2-drop in the early stage. He has a Rafine now, but he wants to jam, but he's gonna be mad with a Scatter Ray, And
I
so
suppose you've got to, right? You've got down
yeah,
to
you
5.
have to.
Make
Yeah, you
them
have
have it.
to.
If they don't
Yeah.
have it, great. Still got a game. If
It's
it gets counted, it's going to be a rough game for me anyway.
very likely that they have something here, but yeah.
They-
One other thing that Mark could have thought about or could have done also was try to wait for an additional turn to try to maybe draw a spell pierce. So he goes 4th land, Rafine, and have spell pierce up. And also it would kind of like if he has an answer, okay, Shieldred, jam again. This is good because like
Counter-check.
Francisco can have like the thirst in response, just the thirst
Okay, cool. So
resolves it. Really good, really important for Mark that the shoulder is resolved there. And remember, the thirst for discovery is played in response. So
I was about
no
to say,
shoulder triggers.
my expert opinion, because I've been hanging around you so long, is that he did that before the shield dread hit
Yes.
the battlefield.
And he did. Shieldred is still on the stack.
So see, there's definitely land in hand that we can discard here.
Yeah, but it's a good spot for Francisco. Usually, he's playing the version where one of the cards that I really liked from Mono Blue was the Blue Sun's Twilight.
Yes,
Which
yes,
really kind of allowed you to kind of steal your opponent's creatures and stabilize the board. Really good against Fable of the Mirrorbreaker tokens, the Goblin Shamans. Like you can just steal a token for 2 mana. But he's not, Francisco's just not playing any in his 75 card list.
We also see a handful of them appearing in the Grixis decks. You know, as we said, with Grixis having so many like options in their color choice, a lot of people are moving that into their sideboard for these sort of matchups. You know, where they can copy things in the mirror, copy a shield dread, etc.
Let's see.
Let's see what we can do. How can we react to this shield dread? Obviously, one of the triggers did happen.
Fading Hope first.
That will do.
Whoa. Okay, that was in the upkeep. Okay, I was like, why is he drawing a card? I thought he was crying, but we were in the upkeep. So, Fading Hope the shoulder so he doesn't take 2. But he still can't play a Tolarian Terror here because I think he's 1 short. He's going to consider again. Probably digging for an answer for the Shieldred. At least for now, trying to find an answer. I think he drew a Ledger Shredder, if I'm not mistaken. He might be able to play a land into Shredder. But he also, I think he drew Make Disappear. So that's exactly what he wanted.
It's like on the other side, Mark, he kind of wants to see this, right? He kind of wants to see his opponent turn a burn on their turn, not instant speed, you know, using the mana up on that, so there's more chance of his stuff resolving. We know that there's a shield dread coming down. This is, you know, we're chipping for 2 every turn. This is starting to add up now, you know.
Yep. Okay, another
Another
Plaza.
land into shield dread, holding up spell pierce mana. Do we have it?
Make Disappear. He's trying to bluff, I think. Mark Farrell is like, oh, so you're targeting the Shieldred on the stack? Oh, okay. Let me think about this one. You know.
Let's go.
Oh, he's trying to. Oh, he's probably doesn't. It's probably in a different language. So he's just trying to confirm which card it is exactly.
And yep, looks like we can't pay the 2. We don't have a spell pierce in response, so that is not going to resolve. Going to go to the graveyard, and again playing into what Francisco wants to happen here. He's just missing a threat. He's managed to keep the battlefield clear. His opponent's mulled to 5. He just needs a threat. He needs a way to finish this game. See if he can find it.
I think he has now he's very comfortable. He can go Shredder into Tolarian Terror. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 already, so it's cheap. Oh, he has another Shredder even.
Double shredder. Looks like we are playing
Connive.
modern. Love to see it.
Yeah.
Discard this. Put a counter on there. Obviously, connive trigger gives it a +1/+1 counter if we discard a non.
Oh, he even has the 5th land to play the Terror.
That is huge.
Yeah,
that is 8 power on the battlefield.
Yeah, this is what the deck does. Either it's Hotijin or it's a Tolarian Terror. Now it's also the Ledger Shredders from the sideboard. The Guardian of New Benalia looks ridiculous now, right? It's kind of like, hey guys, glad you've decided to show up.
Has Mark got a way to get back into this? Like, you know, like realistically on this battlefield, it looks like it's far behind. Is there some sort of catch-all? Is there any sweepers that we could have?
At this point, honestly, like Shieldred is, it can deal with, it can deal some damage through like all the Legislator triggers, but the Tolarian Terror just trades with it as well. He's in a really difficult spot. So Shieldred, let's try.
Yeah, we drew. Looks like we drew that for the turn. So we'll go there. Upkeep.
Another Fading Hope. Yeah, I think there's a Fading Hope again.
Oh, it's backbreaking, and this is why we call it mono blue tempo, right? It's keeping that pressure up. It's keeping the other side of the battlefield. It's making the blocks real hard on the other side if they can even block it. Oh, do we need chump here? Are we in chump blocking territory already?
Probably not yet, but it's really hard to turn around because it's a swing for 8. If he's replaying the Childred, he's probably going to go on blocking duty next turn. Maybe you can use a Guardian of New Benalia to actually block and make it indestructible. But because of the mulligans, Mark's so low on cards too. It's just really difficult.
It just feels bad tapping 4 mana to play your 4 mana every turn, and my opponent just taps 1 mana to answer it basically. And it's like, this is my whole turn. You've got so much mana. Like, we could counter this now if we potentially got one in our hand. Looks like it's resolving.
Francisco's like, yeah, that's fine.
And it's not even like Jodah blocks well here. Yeah, it's got Death Touch, so we'll trade and get a 5 off the battlefield. I imagine, no, we're probably not swinging for 2 here.
Yeah.
I think that's the on-chump block detail this week.
I think Francisco also has the blue March in his hand. So March of swirling wind.
I actually really like this card. I see this quite a lot, like in
So he kind of what he's thinking about, like, oh, do I want to march my opponent's board now, swing for 8? But I think he wants to really get that Ledger Shredder triggers going, and he doesn't have a second spell, so he can wait for a bit, and he won't do it now, but he can easily just swing for 3 in the air with the Shredders, and then play the March in the upkeep, for example.
So can we can't get lethal now, can we? Just okay, so 5 2-leg show triggers. No, that would just take us up to 10. So we're still 2 short. So we're not going to look at getting 2 spells off in this turn.
Yeah, but Francisco is in no rush really. I don't think. Yeah, the Tolarian Terror is also not like, it's just a blocker basically at this point. It can swing, of course, but the Guardian of New Banner can block it and just use it, discard a card, make it indestructible. It doesn't really do anything. That's why the March is going to be important. I don't know what other card Francisco drew, so okay, but he's going to go on the offensive here.
So this is the first spell. No connive triggers are going to happen here. These two, they're going to be faded out.
Oh, okay, that's enough.
Yep, you've got me. And we see Francisco taking it down, refuses to lose. Turned up on Friday, hoping for the best, and the best is happening for him. Congratulations to him advancing to 4-0. Unlucky for Mark, that token just did not help him enough, unfortunately for him, but you know, he's still got a lot more of a game in this. As we said, we think 18 points or better will be able to get players into a day 2 slot, and that's when they're going to start playing for the real prizes, the real money, the real invites yet and worlds to go. We're going to go across to our backup feature match, it looks like.
Yeah, again, Esper Legends. This time on the right, it's Bart van Aten. But I chose Shane Murray's John Reanimator as a deck I wanted to see, because it's really interesting. It's we're trying to use, like, it has Tyvar, the Jubilant Brawler, and the Armored Scrap Gorgers to boost up the mana, and it's playing 4 Cruelty of Gix to try to reanimate Atraxas, but also Titan of Industry or Shieldreds and whatnot. So his board's presence seems very strong in this game. It's game 3. I assume again the player who was on the play probably had a big advantage here, and with Bard only having a Airtie resurrected on the board, it's might be a bit of a struggle, especially once those Scrap Gorgers start churning through the graveyards and growing into 3/3.
Why would we play green? Obviously, traditionally we see the red-black Atraxa decks as the reanimator, of choice. Why are we splashing? What sort of advantage does green give us?
So green gives you Armored Scrap Gorgers, so that kind of accelerates you. It allows you to hard cast the Atraxas, so it's a really good 2-drop. You also get Tyvar, which works really well with Bloodtide Harvester, because you can bring it back, it gets you the blood. You can activate it immediately, because Tyvar has the passive ability of creatures with tab abilities. You can use them right away. And that also works with the Scrap Gorger as well. And the mana is pretty good, even if you're playing John. You got those new lands and everything. Plus, you get a few more sideboard options, like I see Terra Sunder, Nissa Ascended Animist, and Thrawn Breaker of Silence in the sideboard as well. So
those are quite good in the mirror, right? You know, if an Atraxa hits a graveyard, you can just eat them up straight away. You know, so ideal there. We do see the Fables dealt with at I think that was in our main phase. Yeah, main phase before we passed turn, so we don't get the extra Kiki-Jiki effect of it, because I feel like that now, as we spoke about on Bloodtide, would be pretty brutal.
Yeah, but pretty good board for Shane Murray. He just can't fall behind too much. I think that's another Fable.
Yep, I think that's another Fable coming down. We're looking at the graveyard.
No, Graveyard Trespasser. Okay, with these sort of, like, if you're using the check cards, which are basically like replacement, it can be, for us as casters, can be pretty difficult to tell which one of those flip cards it is. So really, a lot of graveyard hate for.
Which makes sense if you're coming for, if you think there's going to be a lot of Atraxa kind of reanimated decks, that's the reason to play green. Why would all these extra cards add to getting rid of that graveyard? As that one exiles a creature, we gain a life during life. There's a little extra. It's very hard to get off the battlefield as well. Normally a 2/4 unless we get into a real good blocking situation.
Yep.
And it starts the whole night and day saga thing going on. So
that's fun to track.
That's a beauty to track for everybody at home.
Yeah, so he plays also the Fable of the Mirror Break. Okay, Okay, look, we finagled some old Goblin 1/1 tokens into 2/2 Goblin Shamans. One of them is doesn't have summoning citizens, so you can attack right away, get him a treasure, and the board for Shane looks really, really good, and that's the problem for Bart Van Aten. The Esper Legend deck can be good at flying over, but you need Rafine to do that, and just an Airtight Resurrected is probably not going to do it.
So why are we like? I'm looking at this battlefield. I'm like, whoa, I'm really far behind here. Why am I attacking there instead of leaving it back for blocks?
Because Shane is already down to 8, so really he was already probably doing some chip damage in the early turns, and now is Shieldred on the battlefield. You know, and once he draws, he can go down to 6 if he doesn't have an answer. So actually, the Shieldred can win the game.
So
if unchecked.
Yeah, cool. We're doing the chipping away damage. We've seen our line. This is the game plan we're going to go with, and we're going to hope that the Shieldred can get us there. Is there any answers on the Jun side? Like what?
Go for the throws, and like there can be a bunch of stuff. Yeah, there's Unleash the Inferno is also something that can be played. He does have Brotherhood's End in his hand, so
don't recommend that one right now. Not going to go out on the limit.
Yeah,
that one's going to get cast anytime soon.
This is kind of the thing that we talk about, especially with these black red X mid-range decks. That sometimes you want to bring in cards like Brotherhood's End because like, oh, what if I fall behind too much, right? So this is something that you can do. But he actually discards the Brotherhood's End, takes 2 more damage, down to 4. The Shieldred can be actually really problematic. I think it's another Trespasser.
Trespasser or Fieldred?
Okay, that's fine. That can at least gain you a bit of life. Yes, so gonna exile one of the creatures.
There's still a couple left in there.
Yeah.
We've got to be getting close to maybe like how many creatures? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 creatures. Fables flipping next turn.
Another flip card in the hand. Is it maybe another Fable? It's just gonna Shane maybe just trying to really build out his board and then try to go for like a big swing.
And this is kind of as we spoke about the power of these, of Fable the Mirror Breaker in general. I could have the Brother's End in hand, and it could be terrible. It lets me cycle it away, like get rid of my bad cards in the matchups, and that's like the game 1% decks with cards of Fable must be great. But drawing 2, discarding 2 if you need to against an active Shieldred on the other side of the battlefield is going to be pretty bad for us. But battlefield is getting clogged up here. We're fully aware of this for our players. Coming across, this is only a 3/3. Are we just suiciding this into the Shieldred to get a bit of life?
Not really suicide. He attacks into the Shieldred with the Trespasser to gain the life, and then he has Bloodtide Harvester still with the blood. So if the Shieldred blocks, it takes 3, and the Bloodtide Harvester finishes it off.
Okay, yeah, so I like that.
And I mean, this is a good way for Shane to play it because he's really built out his board. The Esper Legend decks usually don't play any sweepers. I mean, I know that Gab Massif is running like 1 Depopulate or something like that, but usually no, and the deck lists are open anyway, right? So Shane Murray knows what he has to play around. And this Jun deck is fun. Like sometimes it doesn't really come together, like especially when your creatures get killed with some sweepers. But like once you start doing like the Tyvar thing and the Cruelty of Gix thing, it's pretty fun.
So this is we've seen this Esper Legends deck quite a lot on camera so far, but every single time it falls slightly behind, it feels like it looks really hard for it to get back out from under the the boot that it's currently under. On the other side of the battlefield, we've got to be close to lethal. Everything starts flipping now. These 3/3s grow to 4/4s.
Yeah, I mean now a bit of a misstep from Shane. He already started untapping and changing night to day with his Graveyard Trespasser, but he still managed to get an oil counter with the Scrap Gorger, because when they become tapped, you get an oil counter. Then they turn into 3/3s when you get the 3rd oil.
There's a big one off the top. That's the big 7/7.
The Titan of Industry?
Yeah, it's a Titan. That's the one I was looking for. Titan.
Okay. So
are we main phasing? No, we're going to wait for our Fables. Don't get too far ahead of ourselves right now.
The Titan is really good here. It's only I think a 1-off in his deck.
So
great draw.
6 mana, right?
He does have Scrap Gorger, so at least 1. I think there's a 1 on top of the screen. Just
slightly off underneath our graphic at the top of the screen. So I think we're just alpha striking it. Like,
okay.
What have you got before I actually cast it?
So attack with all the creatures. So it triggers 2 treasures, exiling 2 creatures, I think, to gain 2 life. Oh no! So first the Scrap Gorgers. So exiles 2 spells.
So exile 2 spells, which makes 2 3/3s. Then we've got the triggers, which is we can exile 2 cards each. So potentially, if we can exile 4 creatures, that's a swing of 4 life each way.
There's only 3 creatures in the graveyard, so it's going to be a swing for 3.
So that drops us down, puts them down to 10, us up to 8. And then Shieldred blocks. I imagine we've got something. We've got 5 mana open here.
Yeah, he still has the Titan, and he has now got extra treasure. So yeah, it was a big attack anyway. Lots of damage coming through, and yeah, no way around it. Maybe if Bard had some trick, but I don't think it would have been enough there. And John Reanimator, 4-0.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
John is one of my favorite archetypes, so I'm really happy to see Shane doing well. But you saw the good side of the deck.
Yeah, well, it paid off well from there, and we've seen eating that graveyard up. I imagine that's doing a lot of favors in the mirror matches, in the reanimators. We'll see if we've got. It looks like we don't have any more feature matches for you all, but that doesn't mean we need to end the round right now. We can go. We can have a talk about this. Yeah, we can have a little conversation. I like talking to you. Very pleasant man to talk to. We'll see if we can get up the prizes. What's everyone's playing for this weekend? So, if you're just tuning in, welcome. My name is Will Hall. I'm joined by Big Z Zatlkaj, and we've got 471 players turned up today, and they're all battling it out to try and make day 2, where exactly $100,000 of prize money is being fought for, as well as top 36 players getting PT invites. But what is better than a PT invite?
Getting to play the World Championship.
Exactly. And they also get to requalify for Athens. We go back for this. Basically, they don't have to play the season to try and requalify. They automatically requalified for Athens. But there could be people at home looking to, maybe I want to play Athens. Maybe this event looks good. It's a Pioneer format. This one's Standard. That one's Pioneer. People like playing Pioneer. People realistically like playing Standard by the looks of it. You know what I mean? I'm enjoying this. I feel like all the different decks and archetypes. I did, when it first came out and got announced, I was one of the haters.
Oh, come on.
Standard.
I miss Standard so much.
It's that arena format, and then I played it on arena.
No, the arena format is called Alchemy. So a bunch of people play it, but I think Standard has been a bit rejuvenated by this round of regional championships, and I think people have enjoyed trying to test for the format. And it's still, the metagame is still evolving. People are still discovering some new cards. I saw one of the players I talked to from Greece. He said he was scared of all the toxic decks. So they have Toxrill in the sideboard. It's one of the 7-mana slug that at the end of each turn, all opponents' creatures did -1/-1. I mean, it is very expensive.
Yeah. Well, but we reanimate it out.
You can reanimate it out, exactly. So you can play it a bit earlier. Just didn't want to die against Toxic, and Toxic was a big breakout from last week, and now we're kind of seeing a big resurgence, and of course Grixis again, but a lot of mono red is here as well. A bunch of reanimator decks are here, so it's really fun and evolving. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how the meta develops as we get closer to San Diego, which is the American Regional Championship. I think it's at the end of March.
Yeah, so a month's time. There's a few of them obviously dotted around the world. That's where we get all of our players and we send them all to the Pro Tour. We just had PT Philly, and I think a lot of people watched that Pro Tour and was like, oh, it's back. This is what it used to look like. This is great. COVID's over. Everyone's getting there. Now everyone's like, oh, no, I kind of want to go to that. You know what I mean? I was there and I wanted to look. I was like, actually, I would like to be on that side. Let me sit in the seat and stand up all day. It was, the whole weekend was great, from seeing artists to seeing your favorite players that you've seen for many years on old PTs and GPs, to seeing cosplayers, and just being there at the event, being in a different city with your friends. It is kind of like a mini holiday.
I can definitely recommend it because, we're in Naples, Italy. It's really nice outside, and in general, the food's great, right?
A lot of pizza going on.
Yeah, lots of pizza over here, and everyone loving it. And just in general, there's so much to do. Even if you're not qualified, you can play the Last Chance Qualifier. That was the tournament that, in the end, it wasn't to play Black Lotus, but you could play the Legacy format with a bunch of really good players and really test yourselves. There's some tournaments on Sunday.
What if I scrub out today? What are all the players today? Only 64 players potentially come back tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a qualifier on Sunday.
Exactly. What the other 400 plus players are going to do? Probably try and requalify on the Sunday. It's against Standard format, I believe.
Yep.
I believe another Standard. So they take the same decks. They've had practice all day today. They can queue up tomorrow and try and again win themselves slots to get to Athens, which is where we'll be doing this all again. We'll be live there. We also have got a couple more events coming up in the future. So the next time you'll see Legacy live after this weekend, it will be Modern Action in Prague. One of my favorite cities in Europe. I do like
Prague's fantastic.
It's such a cool place to be. So, still time to queue up for that. Go play in it and get yourself a slot for Athens. I do want to talk about testing. This is something that we don't, the more you get into constructive, competitive Magic and how much testing is involved. Same with limited as well. I suppose you've got to test limited if you want to be good at that, especially on the Pro Tour first 3 rounds of draft. So you do have to kind of get in these. You've been in a lot of draft teams. You've done, you've been there. You've done it. That's why we've got you here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not
I
going
get
to be able to
That's
go
why I
through
have a
that.
token,
Exactly.
right?
That's why you've got a token, which I'm so jealous of. Talk me to me about testing teams. Before these big events, how do players or teams generally test? Like, how do they decide what decks they want to play? And we've known multiple teams are here, but they're not all on the same decks. How do you know?
It differs, and that's kind of the interesting bit where it really depends also, like, if it's standard, you can easily play online because, it's so available on Arena. There's a bunch of players, so you can play a lot of games of standard on Arena. Of course, like, you ideally want to play against people who are good, right? So you want to get to Mythic as soon as possible, right? So you get to play against the good players, but even then, like, there's obviously some variance in there. So usually for the regional championship, there are already some testing teams who are really preparing together for these regional championships, and it's not super common. I know the French have a mini team.
Yep.
I know there's a bunch of people from the UK who
The
test
Danes
together.
have got a really
Danes
good team.
test together. Yeah, I also saw some other people kind of trying to get together, but they usually kind of test online. And by testing, it just means like you try to figure out what are the best decks. You play them against each other, and you figure out like what are the matchups, like, or what are important cards in the metagame that you want to play around, and just try to find the best version for the metagame. After you try to figure out like, hey, what might be other people bringing. And I've heard actually from a bunch of people that after last weekend, after the Japanese regional championship,
with the
toxic deck really doing so well, everyone had to kind of retest their decks and kind of, okay, we got to figure out how to do against toxic.
And that brings me into the next question: is how much does these events affect the meta? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's huge. I know that a lot of the Americans that I talked to, like, I was like, oh, how's your testing going? They're like, I haven't started testing it. I'm waiting for the European and Regional Championships to finish because that's going to be my guiding star.
Yeah, you're going to see what wins here, what does well. And
exactly.
Those decks are going to be the ones with the target on the back. We saw that it was the toxic deck this weekend. We feel like the way decks have kind of been built and how everyone's reacted to it, that it had to change because of that meta. If I don't know, maybe if it does well again here, fingers crossed. Come on, toxic decks. Come on, do it for me. Infects in all formats. Maybe that does well here, and it keeps going. And decks have to evolve further, get more sideboard slots, or even main deck slots to be able to deal with these maybe mono blue tempo.
Yeah, and if you're more of like, you don't go to these events or you don't try to qualify, once these kind of things end, a new set comes out, and then you're starting all over.
Yeah, it's like start from scratch.
You suddenly get all these new cards in the format. It changes again. Like some decks get better, some decks it's so much fun. Like if you're really invested into Magic, like following the competitive scene and playing these formats can be a lot of fun and testing your skills.
Is there another set? There's another set released before the next PT, isn't there?
I think so. Yeah, the March of the Machine.
And that's like me watching it, but Will 5 years ago, 6 years, however long it was when I first started getting back into Magic, watching the Pro Tours. That was my favorite thing. Was watching what the pros turn up with. We didn't have like the big stream community we have now. We didn't have like all this content that you see on YouTube, etc. Which some could argue the meta gets solved really quickly in some formats because streamers are there grinding it out, finding the best deck, seeing what's winning, and everyone picks up on it. But for when a set's released just before a PT, and then we see the best players in the world going to that PT, they've worked it out, and I just love watching it. And my big one is when I saw Pro Tour Born of the Gods, and I saw Blue Moon for the first time, and just caught everybody off guard. It made sense. I'm going to play a lot of Islands, and then I'm going to play a Blood Moon and try and cheese everybody out of wins. And I just thought, oh my god, that's so good.
I played that one pretty well.
How are you doing it?
I was like top 16.
Oh, gee! I was expecting like, top.
It's like, that's that tournament. Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
That was good. What deck was you on?
I was on Jund.
Or
Abzan? Jund or Abzan, like one of those two.
Black X sort of deck.
Black Green Rock, style of deck. Yeah, it was good fun. I actually looked up the results yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, because I was watching the stream.
When you were signing your tokens.
No, definitely not. I don't want to brag, but it was good. And it's kind of really circles back to what you said about testing, because we had an insane testing team. We had like Stanislav Tivka and like a bunch of Willie Adel. We had a really good solid testing team. And I was the one who did best with our deck, but we were really prepared. Yeah, of course. I'm only saying this because I know that everyone in the team really complained about our deck choice because none of them did that well. But I think we had really good limited testing done as well.
Well, we saw it even at the last PT where we had like Reduke who managed to take it down. With Gab Nassif top 8. We had great other players in it like Martin Hughes. Like that whole testing team at the minute. I think it's the Ultra Guard Channel Fireball one.
Yep.
It's like the Avengers of MCG. Like the amount
there
of
were always
Hall of Famers they've got in there.
There were always super teams in Magic. Like I fondly remember those times where it was like all the best teams were kind of always trying to one up each other and like, oh, our team did this record in limited, or our deck did this in constructed, right? And it was always good times because you had like the team series as well for a while, where it was really like they were, you're counting the points of every team member. So yeah, I think just in general, I'm so happy that competitive Magic is back. We have the Pro Tour back. It's amazing.
It's a blessing, and that's because from events like this, with Legacy hitting on and streaming this coverage, we've got like DreamHack doing it in America. We had the over, as I say, the Japanese regionals.
Yeah, big Magic in Japan. Yeah,
just having so much live coverage that we haven't had for so many years. We were deprived of this. COVID hit us in many ways, and but for Magic players, it hit us hard, right? We couldn't see the paper Magic being played. We had to see people not remember their triggers, just let them happen. And now we're back to paper Magic. Everyone's like, the trigger? Yeah, I say trigger here now, and this resolves, and this is how I stack my...
The judge calls, the deck list.
It's like a soap opera, right? It's a drama. Plus, you've got live commentary over it, some better than others. But, it all adds up to this great actual, bubble that we put a little bow on for everybody. And then someone at the end of the weekend gets to walk away with beautiful trophies like this. So
that's the best.
It's absolutely ideal. Right, we're going to call that as the end of round 4. We'll hand off back to the ladies for round 5. My name is Will. This is Big Z, and we'll see you all really shortly.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are here in Naples for the last tournament. This one is the final of the LEC, the Legacy European Championship. We are in Naples. We are playing standard, a lot of standard. I'm here with Filipa, and we are ready for another round of this cast. And we have a lot of players today. There are a few players that we already know very well. So we are looking at their score, and we can see that we have just two of them that is 4-0. That is Toralf Severin, we saw him before, and Arne is 4-0 as well. And so bad for, I don't know how to pronounce
Marcio Carvalho, yeah,
Okay.
Portuguese player, not doing so great.
No, sorry.
Decided to bring Reanimator. I actually was talking with them yesterday because he's a part of the Portuguese group of people that decided to bring this deck. Not doing so well today. It's like Rakdos Reanimator for Atraxa, but with some other cards also trying to reanimate Titan. We have Gabriel Nassif 3-1, and actually Gabriel Nassif is the player that is already qualified not only for the Pro Tour but also for Worlds. So just playing here to see his friends, to get some money, and doing well. 3-1 Esper Legends.
And there is a lot of Esper Legend, a lot of Grixis, and there is just Piotr with Selesnya Toxic.
Yeah.
Also.
So from what I gathered from the players, a lot of them wanted to actually play this Selesnya Toxic that won the Japan qualifier, but it's actually difficult to get the cards. Most of the cards are from Phyrexia, not all the players have access, so many of them wanted to actually bring the deck, but couldn't snatch their hand on the cards, and that's the difference between paper Magic and online, right? Sometimes you gotta play with what you have, and in this case a lot of players, that's why I think mono red is our third most played deck.
And it's also a difference from modern to standard, because in modern you have a lot of times and usually you have your deck and you have maybe to do some little changes, but in standard you have to build the full deck. It could be tricky when local shop doesn't have the cards that you need, or in this case when a lot of people want to play the same thing, so there is a shortage of cards.
Exactly, and here we can see the meta breakdown for this day 1. We are already on round 5 out of 9. Players with 6 wins or 18 points advanced to day 2, and definitely trying to do that. And in a good spot here we have Frank 3-1 with Grixis midrange, the most played deck in our metagame, against a very fun deck. Alex Sealer decided to bring 5-color Legend, and for those of you that don't know, this is a deck that I've been playing for a while and got some new cool additions in Phyrexia. This deck tries to work with Jodah. Jodah gives your creature +1/+1 for each legendary creature you control. So the triggers on this deck are kind of crazy.
Okay. I'm always happy when one of the casters have to cast a deck that knows so well, and he's so happy about it, and it's so funny because you know very well about everything, about sideboard, about the choices.
Yeah, this deck is definitely one to watch. I've played the deck. I tried it myself. You know, it is not easy to play, and I played it on Arena, so I can only imagine how difficult it is to play in paper. So definitely a bold choice here for a 5-color Legend player.
Your focus should be over the top, because you have to remember everything, every single trigger, and when you have a lot of triggers, it's not so easy. With
And
this
I
pressure.
think the players might be switched, because I see Harvester here. A blood tide Harvester, so looks like that is our Grixis player.
Yeah, I think they will fix that pretty fast.
Yes. And okay, so this is the most difficult part, because the Legend deck only has legendaries, and legendaries have all these different arts. So even the opponent is like, what is that card?
What is this one? Double Kikijiki, double Fable of Kikijiki, 1 cut down.
Yeah, reading that, I think this might be Malira, the Living Cure, the 3/3.
The chat is agree, saying is Malira.
It is Malira. Okay, I was going to search for it, but
Thank
if
you,
chat say, I'm
helping.
going to agree. We have Fable of the Mirror Breaker. That card we know in every art at this point because it is one
Yeah,
of
it's
the
very
most
used.
played
Very
cards,
used.
not only in standard but in multiple formats.
Let's see what happened. Right now we need a token, for sure.
Again, like
Yeah.
I think this one might be the King Varial.
I'm very happy about the choice for the different alternative um, images for every card, because then you can choose which one you prefer in your deck, which one is the cutest, which one. But as a caster, it's pretty complicated because sometimes you can't recognize every single altar.
Okay. Yeah, especially on the Legends deck because recently we have a lot of different treatments for the legendary cards.
Exactly.
But yeah, for 3 mana, I'm assuming it is the King. So for those of you that don't know, King Varian, 3 mana to 3 other creatures you control get +1/+1, and then you can pay 5 mana to put a +1/+1 counter on King Varian and create a 1/1 token. And not only that, you can actually sacrifice King Varian. Creature tokens you control gain X-proof and indestructible. So that's a pretty cool one. And I see here that Frank is reading Malira there.
Cut down.
Cut down on King. So
also he's tapped out of mana, so he cannot do anything in response.
Yeah, the only thing that Alex can do is actually exile Malira, the living cur, choose another target creature or artifact. When it's put into a graveyard, returns to the battlefield, and it looks like it's exactly what Alex decides to do here, using Malira's ability to get King Dariel back on the battlefield.
And attacking for the token, with the token for the token, because it produces treasure.
Yeah, and there it is.
Of course, block.
Frank just really needs that mana.
Yeah.
Using the... Ooh, smart play there. Using Harvester to get rid of Burial, knowing that it couldn't kill the king just with the ability. It had to attack first with the token. And since it was blocked, now we can finish it off with the Harvester's ability. Another Fable of the Mirror Breaker, another token entering the battlefield. And this is where Grixis mid-range shines. Not only it has a ton of removal, it also has a lot of abilities. So this is Talia. I am able to recognize this art of Talia, which is actually really, really nice.
Yeah.
And we also have the Nick. This one not only played in this deck, but also in a lot of others.
Trigger.
Oh, actually, this is Arbin Vanguard Aviator, the 3/2 that when you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures you control get +1/+1 and flying until the end of the turn. Fine choice here by Alex. I really haven't seen this card play in this deck yet, but it actually makes a lot of sense. Since your creatures, a lot of them are soldiers.
The Fable is flipping. Now we have Kiki Jiki on the board.
The thing with the 5-color legend deck is that if you are able to get Jodah, you usually win. The thing is that it's not easy to get Jodah because it's 1 mana of each. We have Shielded here. We all know this card. And
yeah. Draw 2 life point.
I'm going to try get Jodah on the screen just so that people can see, because I know a lot of you probably don't know this deck.
It's not very common, as we can saw before for the breakdown meta deck.
Yeah, Danik here. And pass.
A lot of alternative art. Let's see, he has some options. of course, you have to flip the Fable first.
Yeah. And now gaining some life with
Yep.
Shieldred as well. Can we show Jodah on the screen?
Sheholder's attacking, he's thinking about it. Because 2 mana opens, he can still do stuff. This is so important, because also if you are 3-1, you want to try to hit 18 points. So 6-3 is your goal, your skull goal.
Yeah, and you're starting well. 3-1 is pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's pretty good. So you
but
don't want to make mistakes right now. You want to continue to play well, and it's like we are in round 5. We are still 4 more to go. You need to be focused.
Yeah, so the card that we have on the screen now is Jodah the Unifier. So this is the card that 5-color legend inspires on, and that's the goal. So Jodah the Unifier, legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control, and this 5-color deck only plays legend creatures. And then it still has another ability. You can read it on the screen. I think it's helpful. And Arbringer has Flyer, so here Alex just attacking with it. And go. Not finding the 5th land is tricky, right? Because if you do have Jodah, which is what your deck needs, you're not able to cast it.
Yeah. The Fable will copy it.
Triggered from Sheldred. So for those of you that wonder what is that 5, there are 5 tokens from the Kikijikis that were made in the end of Alex's turn, and they are still alive and not needed to be sacrificed until the end of Frank's turn.
Yeah, it's so strange for us on the feature table to have a white sleeve with an amber on it and not the purple token.
You know what's funny? Actually, it's not easy to get this token. I think this
No.
token are running for like €5, something like
Oh.
that. I don't know if they are still, but I remember that in Sofia, because it was Pioneer, and Fable also plays a lot in Pioneer, people were selling this token for around €5. It's like really difficult to find.
Okay.
But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Don't quote me on
No,
this.
it's possible.
But I think these tokens actually are worth something. So here we have all these attacks. We have triggered for the treasure token from the goblin, and
Let's see if he's
Alex
deciding
is
to.
at 16, able
Yeah.
to make 2 blocks, also gaining life with Danik that has lifelink. So they're able to gain 2 life.
The problem for him is that right now he have to deal with multiple problems. There is a Shieldred, there is a lot of creatures. There are so many things that he have to deal with, and only 4 mana for him. How could he resolve these problems? There is something in his deck that could be helpful.
It's not easy. I see that Danik goes for one of the reflections. I think Talia champs on Shieldred. So Danik does survive and it gains 2 life, but then they are passing 12 damage, so Alex should be losing 6 life, and yeah, 10 life, and yeah, this is game. We have a win here for our Grixis mid-range player, and just showcasing why this is also the deck that is most played. It is honest word.
Exactly.
I mean, it has good cards. It just says Fable, shielded.
Yeah.
And you still have the ability to have counter magic, which is why they play the blue. Just overall a very good deck. 5-color can also be very explosive, but you really need to have a good curve.
Yeah.
Talia on turn 2 would definitely help here now that Alex
To
is
slow
going on the
down.
play, because that will slow down Frank a lot. Because if Alex is able to play Talia on 2, then Frank cannot Fable on 3, only
Yeah,
on
exactly.
4. That will get Alex time to build the strategy with the Legends and then get Jodah. So we have here a
Oh.
quick look at Grixis mid-range deck. It's a
What-
pretty standard mid-range deck, Grixis mid-range.
What do you think is the useless card? You're not useless, but what do you think you will side out and will side in?
I'm taking a
this-
look here at the list run by the Grixis mid-range player. We do have Negate, which I'm not sure is very very good against the 5-color because they only play creatures main.
Yeah.
They do have some sideboard, but main deck it's only creatures, so that is game 1 dead card, let's say, because it's not going to do anything.
There's 2 cut down more that probably you could use.
Yeah, the cut downs are good. Yeah, braids are good. I would definitely looking here at the sideboard. There are good removals. Another Shieldred. I wonder if he does bring another Shieldred from the side. Stroke also a good card because it's able to counter Jodah.
We are looking also to the second table, to the 5-color sideboard right now.
Yes, and we can see here the sideboard is very interesting. First of all, you have an Eiganjo, which is not only a land but allows you to remove something from the Grixis side. I see and license Urs. There's no tenacious underdog on the Grixis mid-range side. There is Corpse Appraiser, but still maybe not good enough to bring the card. I like Fateful Absence, being able to remove some of the creatures. And one card that I really love is Anointing Peacekeeper,
Yeah.
not only allowing you to look at your opponent's hand, but kind of controlling it, choosing something
Yep.
to cost more. So I really like Anointed Peacekeeper here.
He has many options for trying to slow him down, but we will see if it's enough.
Yeah, now the tricky part is to see if Alex can manage to have an
Yeah.
end that has a good amount of lands. Then the land situation is tricky when you're playing 5 colors. You really need your plazas, which Alex was missing in last game. Plaza makes that you can use any mana to cast your legends. Also is a way to protect them later on. So definitely we'll need some plaza of heroes.
Such a good card.
Yeah, and then the key cards, you know, Talia is really good against the Grixis mid-range. And we also have the Jodah that if it enters the battlefield and Frank doesn't have an answer, it probably is a game.
Yeah. Still deciding what to side out. Right now we are not in Magic the Shuffling, we are in Magic the Sideboarding. Let's remind that this tournament is the final, so the top 36 will go to will have an invitation for the Pro Tour, and the top 2 will get an invitation for the Worlds. So they are dealing with a lot of stuffs, and they are trying their best because it's amazing.
Yeah, open deck list is always tricky, right? Because
Yeah.
you have so many things to think about. For example, Negate, you're like, okay, I take Negate, they only have creatures. But if I take a non-creature cell from the sideboard, let me see if they have something on the sideboard that I need to negate.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, it's 36 players that get invited to the Pro Tour, not 32.
I was checking to the to the things that we have written before.
Yeah. We get 4 bonus players into the Pro Tour.
Still sideboarding, still deciding.
Yeah, this is high stakes. It's really, this is a tournament that is being watched by a lot of people. I think
Yeah.
1,000 people or something close to that are watching the
Yeah.
stream right now. The pressure is high. You don't want to make any mistake.
Yeah, sometimes also being in the feature table could be tricky because you start to play different because you don't want to do the wrong thing. So when you have to make a choice and say, will I try to a little gambling? Maybe on the feature table you will not, and if you choose the gambling side, it could be better. But you don't want to make a. It could be tricky. Also, you have two peoples and the judges that is fully, completely all the time watching your table, and you know there are a lot of people at home, and you don't know what they are telling you about your play. Could be really under pressure.
Yeah, and here is where our most known competitive players have a bit of advantage because they've been here so many times. For them, this is like another day at the office, and
exactly. We saw Nassif before. I don't think he has any problem with that because he used to play under pressure, under coverage. So it's another day for him, as you said.
Yeah, actually yesterday Will went out for dinner with Nassif and some of Will's friends. Very nice guy, and we were talking a bit about the metagame. He's already qualified for Worlds. He's here for fun, you know.
Also, he's not under pressure also for this because he don't need to qualify.
And he's 3-1, so imagine not having any pressure and still doing great.
No. Yeah, but it's a long time, and it's a mulligan, probably, for 5-color legends. Because he was ready to go, and now he's shuffling again. Half an hour still for game 2 and
potentially
eventually,
3.
Yeah, game 3. Second shuffling from the opponent.
Okay, there we go.
I really understand them. I don't know how can they stay focused for so long.
Big decision here.
Yeah.
And Alex actually is the one that has to say first if he wants to keep our mole.
Ooh.
Decided to
another mole.
Because he is on the play since he lost. There is the thing. This deck, this 5-color legend deck, it can pop off. It can be really strong, but again, you're playing 5 colors. A lot of your 2 drops have, for example, white and blue, and then you have another one that is red and green. You know,
Yeah,
so
you want a good combination of mana colors and card that you can play at least in the first 2 rounds of your game, because otherwise you know that Grixis will be very, very fast.
Let us know, Twitch chat, if you were here at the Legacy European Championship, what deck would you bring? Let us know. We always love to see what chat would bring to these tournaments. Oh no, this is so rough. Another mulligan.
Ooh.
And actually, Alex was 3-0. It just lost the last one, so if he loses again, definitely.
Yeah, this is an aspect. You can also start to make a loose strike just because you start to think negatively and start to say, oh, this is fucked up. So probably it's not a good spot, and I really hope that he can get a good enough hand right now.
A lot of different answers here in chat. Blue-white control.
This is why I love Magic.
I would play Croak his list. Okay, that's a great streamer. Mono black mid-range. Very good. Okay, so I guess Alex has to keep now. It doesn't matter, right? Like
also because it's mul to 4.
It's mul to 4. It hurts, right? It really.
Yeah.
But you never know. And the thing is that Frank kept a 7 opener, so. At least there's land. So
yeah.
Okay, so I think the land names humans. Now it can give mana of any color to cast humans. Also, one of the lands that make this deck a bit more playable. And we have we have Talia. That's a good start, you know.
2 mana and a blood token. The third one. I really love that he has a little piece of papers with names already prepared.
Yeah, I wonder if now it's human or soldier. I'm not sure. I think it's human again. Talia attacking, it does have first strike, but we have Harvester that can just use the ability to kill Talia. And I see a cut down in Frank's hand, so Frank can even use the Harvester to kill Talia and then cut down Danik, and still having access to 2 mana after that. Okay, Talia's gone, there we go, 3 mana. Deciding just to go for Fable. That's what wins you a lot of games, so...
Yeah. It's a good move.
Definitely. And I already see Corpse Appraiser, I see Reckon Bankbuster cut down. There are a lot of answers in Frank's side.
Yeah, he has a good hand.
Yeah. And with Talia already in the graveyard, that Corpse Appraiser can already get value. So this card here is Ajar, I think. So Ajar is 2 mana, 3/3, and you can sacrifice it. Legendary creatures you control get +1 and gain indestructible until the end of the turn. So that's a way to protect one of your legendary creatures.
Now I make disappear for Frank. He was really thinking about it.
So I think here the issue is that Frank doesn't have a 4th land. But at the same time, it's actually a non-issue. When you have Corp Appraiser, you can attack with your 2/2 just to make a treasure token. I wouldn't be too concerned here. And Frank does have the 3 colors that he needs in this deck. Oh, a very good point there. Actually, Corpse Appraiser is locked by the Danik ability. So let me read here Danik out loud, because the ability on the Danik says that cards in graveyard can be target of spells or abilities, which means that when Corpse Appraiser enters, it cannot exile a creature, which means that it cannot look at the top cards and get one of them. Very good point there. So actually, we are having 2 discard here, Brotherhood N and Reckon Bankbuster, drawing 2 from the second ability of Kiki-Jiki, and I think there's no land.
No.
What can be done is you can Corp Appraise the Danik, but then we have Hahar that can actually be sacrificed to protect the Danik.
Got down on the Danik. Let's see what Alex will decide.
Yeah, so here Alex is considering if he's going to use the ability on a jar that you can sacrifice it to give your legendaries +1/+0 and indestructible. Decided to just let it resolve. So now what can happen is that it can attack with the 2/2, but obviously then it gets blocked by the 3/3, but at least you get a treasure token.
And
okay, so doing that allows you to get a treasure token.
And of course,
now you can Corp Appraiser, because Danik is no longer on the board. You're going to Corp Appraiser. You have to exile a creature. Exiling Danik there, which makes sense, because it has flashback. Choosing one of the top cards. And playing land go. So here Frank able to stabilize, very well thought, seeking the line, realizing that with Danik's ability, you have to destroy the Danix first before you can get a Corp Appraiser. Losing a 2/2, but it's not a big deal in the scope of the game, especially when your opponent has so little cards, because Alex did have to mull to 4.
And right now he's stuck to 3 lands, 2 cards in hands. It's very difficult for him. Very, very difficult. Also, he sacrificed his goblin token attacking, and he was going to die, but he found a land with the corpse, so probably was a good choice. And the fourth land and pass.
In the end of the game, in the end of the day, losing a 2/2 is much more important.
Yeah.
It's less relevant than getting what you need. The Grixis needs lands.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with Invoke Despair on hand, like we see that Frank has. So
Ooh,
here, that's really good. So Kiki-Jiki is going to flip. Now it's going to be the reflection of Kiki-Jiki. And one of the most strong things that you can do with the reflection of Kiki-Jiki is actually copying Corp Appraiser, which there is one on the board. So if this Corp Appraiser actually manages to survive, this is where Grixis start to get all the advantage.
Yeah. Shield red back down on the board.
The good thing for Alex is that he's still at 22 life.
Yeah, exactly.
And a Jodah can really change things up. But we know that Frank probably is going to have answers.
Yeah. Also, 21 minutes left, so probably Alex need to win and not going too long, because otherwise he will lose.
There we have Jodah. Okay, and actually the good part is that not only Alex played Jodah, it actually have a way to protect it with the Hajar, because Hajar you can sacrifice it to protect something. So even if Frank tries to kill the Jodah, now there's a way that Alex comes back from this game, but he definitely needs that Jodah survives this turn, and he needs to top deck a legend. So
exactly,
because then with Jodah, if you play a legend, you can go to your deck and seek a legend, look for a legend that is less than that mana value, and put it on the battlefield.
Another corpse in Frank's hands. So what he can do now, it's a lot of things. 1 mana.
So there's 2 legends on the battlefield, which means that Jodah is getting +2/+2 to the to legendary creatures.
And he's trying to copy the corpse, of course. One land in hand. And attacking with She-Holdred and with the second corpse.
Yeah, the corpse is going to die anyway at the end of the turn, so you have nothing to lose to attack with it. You might as well. So now things get complicated here, because Frank is pressuring with 7 damage, right?
Escape.
And he just takes 7 damage, looks like.
Yeah. Also, because I don't think that blocking could be an option here, because if you start to block, then you have still to protect your creature in some ways, and you have no cards in hand. Otherwise, Frank can start to make removals or something. So
yeah, and here we have second Corp Appraiser. Let's see if there's a creature to exile. There is the Blood Harvester. Looking at the top 3, 2 lands Harvester, automatically putting Harvest in and land pass. Shieldred trigger, and that Shieldred, it keeps on triggering. It doesn't matter. And with 2 Invoke Despairs on hand, this game is looking really good for Frank.
Yeah.
Now, did Alex get a legend?
Let's see what is. I can't see what I can't. I wasn't able to see what is draw.
A land. Oh no. Okay, but Plaza is not terrible because you can use it to protect your creatures, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So for those of you that don't know, Plaza of Heroes, the land that was just played and that Alex has 2 of, you can actually pay 3 life, tap it, exile Plaza of Heroes, and target legendary creature gains X-proof and indestructible until the end of the turn.
Invoke with Despair.
Of course, it doesn't matter when your opponent has an Invoke Despair because it makes you have to sacrifice. So here, Alex not only is going to lose 4 life, having to sacrifice a creature, then Frank draws 2 cards, 2 triggers from Shieldred.
Yeah.
And you can see where this is going, right?
We can also see by his body language that Alex is not very happy about the situation.
Yeah, so here Frank reading the Plaza, because if Frank decides to attack with everything, then Jodah can block and get indestructible. But still, even if you block Shieldred, if that reflection of Kriki-Jiki is going to copy a Corp Appraiser, then it's more than enough damage. 9 damage passed through, and this is going to be game clean 2-0 for our Grixis player. Congratulations, but also I have to give it to Alex to bring this 5-color Jodah deck here today.
Yeah, and also 3-1, it still was good. We are switching to table 2 right now, we are ready. And here we will see Esper Control against Rakdos Reanimator. So the Esper Control is 4-0, as some of you was asking before for this deck.
And actually, this Rakdos Reanimator deck has been quite popular, with a lot of the players today deciding to bringing it to this tournament.
16 minutes left, plenty enough. Game 2?
Yeah, looks like Rakdos Reanimator. And this is where Rakdos is so good. So, turn 1 already, you have a Duress. And this Esper Control deck is really interesting. So we are seeing right now a card that I haven't seen played Standard in quite a long time, which is Edgar. So Edgar is a sideboard card, and clearly Florian decided to sideboard in against this Rakdos Reanimator deck. Another one. Oh my god. Removing the counter, I think. Third land go. This is, I think, a blast zone.
2 Duress in a row. Painland. We cannot see the graveyard.
No, it's not. I wanted to say Field of Ruin, not Blast Zone, Field of Ruin. So, and we have Edgar, the sideboard card here. For those of you that do not know Edgar, it is a very good card from, I think, Crimson Vow. 4 mana for 4 other vampires get +1/+1. But the important part, when this dies, it comes back as an enchantment that creates you creatures every turn. So here we have a Silver Scrutiny played by our Esper Control player. You may cast it as though it has flash if X is 3 or less, and you draw X cards. So here, I think drawing 3 cards, getting a land. Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
You can see the meta breakdown on Twitter, and later on will be commented by us.
For those of you that are not following Legacy European Tour on Twitter, you should do so.
You should do that, because there is plenty of stuff of meta breakdown, players to watch, deck list.
Yeah,
a lot of cool stuff.
Also, Legacy usually retweets posts from people that win in their local game stores, so we can see the decks that are winning. We have more card draw here. Looking at the top 4 cards. 1 in hand.
I really love how clean he is to keep very, very clear which one is his hand and which one is the one that he have to choose. Sometimes can be messy.
Yes. I'm not the best at doing that, but we are lucky that usually our players are really...
Yeah.
They have to be, otherwise we wouldn't be able to understand much.
And I also really love how the people in the chat keep cheering up for one player or the others.
Yeah, let us know who are you rooting for.
Yeah, keep doing that, guys.
So Edgar attacked there for 4, and actually Medina Martinez already at 12 life. Attacking with the 2-2, making a treasure, and now the Rakdos player has access to a lot of mana, and it's very tricky because we know that there's an Atraxa.
Another duress.
Duress is perfect because you are able to protect if you do have geeks in hand. So if you have Cruelty of Geeks in hand, now because of these Durex, you know you can play it, right?
Yeah.
Unless there's 2 counter spells in hand. And that if that Atraxa comes back, we know things will not be looking good for Florian. Yeah, that it was a memory deluge. Very pretty version.
Yes. I totally agree.
They still have a token that we cannot see on the board,
Yeah,
and that's why they were able to cast Cruelty of Geeks here. And
Atraxa is coming
Atraxa
down.
is on the board, and we look at the top 10 cards, and we are going to find a creature, an artifact, a land, everything
Another
that you...
Atraxa.
Yeah, so...
An Econer. A Fable.
I think that's an edict, and we have a land as well. So pretty good, pretty average for... oh, and also deciding to go for Cruelty of Geeks instead of Fable as the enchantment.
Yep.
So we have Atraxa as the creature, we have Bankbuster as the artifact, we have a land, we have Cruelty of Geeks as the enchantment. And let me just check if I am not mistaken, but I do think...
So many cards in hands.
Yeah, I think this might be a Paratistic Grasp, actually.
Oh, wait. And Florian said, I will remove it. Now he's...
Yeah, Atraxa is a lot of value, and that's why a lot of Reanimator players are playing it. Usually when you reanimate something, you just don't want a creature. You want a creature that gives you value immediately. That's the same reason why we have in other formats Sneef Mizet playing it, because it's a creature that when it enters the battlefield has a lot of effects. It draws you cards. So that's what you want, and Atraxa provides that in a completely other level. Just a card that usually gives you an average of 5 cards, it's really good.
Let's see, the Fable is switching. Yeah, we cannot see the tokens outside of the screen and the graveyard for Florian, but right now it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and here Florian being tapped out.
Yeah.
Attack with the 2-2 to make a treasure. I see a Shield in hand.
So much more mana. Right now he has at least 7 mana.
Just say go.
Okay.
Maybe afraid of a farewell?
Probably, yeah. Because
In Esper Control has a lot of interesting cards. One of them I see in Floria's End is Void Rend. That can destroy target non-basic permanent. So it can deal with a lot of things, and the best part is that it cannot be countered, which is really relevant in this matchup.
Let's keep attacking.
Not in this matchup, but in other matchups. Usually against Grixis.
And of course, it switched. Let's see what he's deciding to do. He has plenty of mana right now, 7 mana, a lot of options, a full hand also for his opponent, and a lot of mana, 5 mana open for his opponent. Okay. Two mana resolve.
Yeah, and that's the Shieldred's Edict that I was looking for.
Yeah.
Really good card.
Asking to the judges for some explanation.
Yeah, so the thing that happened is now Edgar flipped. When Edgar dies, it flips.
That's why it's so good to have a judge dedicate for the table, for the feature table, because in every moment you can have a very fast call and just asking for check everything.
Yeah, so in this case, they are reading Edgar to see if it is when it dies. So even if it's sacrificed, it comes back. Because how it's worded is when Edgar Groom dies, return it to the battlefield, transform under your control. So sacrificing it is, it dies, it doesn't go to exile, so... it does come back.
And, ooh, Fable is sacrificed. The Reckoner produce a pilot and another treasure.
Yeah, we cannot see the treasures, but we can guarantee that at this point Medina has a bunch of mana.
Yeah, at least 2 treasure. So,
Yeah, Plank, another
8 lands, 2 treasure, 10 mana open.
2 Atraxas in end, which is crazy. Art casting an Atraxa. That's what I love about this deck. Look, reanimating an Atraxa is good, but just playing it in Rakdos, how amazing is that? So, is that going to resolve? It looks like it is, because Medina is going to look at the top 10 cards. And let's see what he's able to find.
A bunch of lands, a saga.
You only need 1 of each, so you want the most variety that you can find. Takanuma as the land makes sense. You can use it to get something back from your graveyard. We have Fable of the Mirror Breaker as the enchantment, and actually an interesting choice, Atsushi, the Blazing Sky, as the creature, which is a 4/4 flying trample that when it dies you create 3 treasure tokens or you exile the top 2 cards of your library and you can play them until the end of the turn. Using the Atraxa to crew Bankbuster and attacking for 4, 6, 7. Okay, so we see here that Void Rend was used by Florian to get rid of the Bankbuster and taking 3 damage. We need an answer for that Atraxa.
Yeah.
Another Bankbuster. Sure.
Also, because 22 life points are a lot, but not so many when you have Atraxa against you.
Tweet chat, let us know, who is this professional player on the token? Do you recognize it, Lily?
I think I do, but I don't want to make any mistakes. Just for being sure.
Oh, is this Kaya? Okay, so yeah, let's take a look at Kaya. Kaya actually not only exiles Atraxa, it also gives it to Florian as a 1/1, and now Florian is able to look at the top 10 cards of his library and get some value from it. What a card here.
Bunch of stuff. As always, a creature, a land, a planeswalker.
I swear, this for me is the play of the day so far. Using Kaya to minus an Atraxa, exile it, get it under your control as a 1-1, and being able to look at the top 10 cards. Also, it's not only a 1-1, it's a 1-1 flying that touch vigilance.
Yeah.
And look at the value that Florian was able to get from that. Amazing.
No mana open, by the way. Just one island. So he knows in Martinez's hands, he knows for sure there is a sushi.
I'm really impressed here.
Yeah, this was really a good move.
I really thought Rakdos Reanimated edit, but this guy changed things quite a bit.
Yes, so now we can try to come back. And I hope so, because I really want to see game 3 every time.
I actually have a Kaya alternative art that I was going to sell, but it was so low that I didn't sell it.
Yeah.
So maybe after this...
Let's hope that. I also have one, so I agree.
And we have Cruelty of Geeks here being played. Does it resolve? It does, as Florian only has one land open. And Atraxa again. Oh no, actually Geeks, they choose to use the second ability of Cruelty of Geeks. Look for any card in their end and lose 3 life. Martinez is at 5 life. Because that
it's
card,
very low.
That second ability of the Saga takes 3 life.
It's very low.
Yeah. And Kaya also has X-proof. So it's not easy to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder what Martinez Medina decided to get with Cruelty of Geeks.
Yeah. Attacking with the 1-1 pilot and the 2-2 goblin. Golem.
Yeah, here just
takes
maybe asking what the token was, and it's a token from the Edgar flip side. Oh, Brotherhood's End. This actually also deals damage to Planeswalkers, so it's able to get rid of Kaya as well. And there you are, where people are now playing Brotherhood's End instead of the previous board wipe.
And now get rid of all the treasure.
So I guess Brotherhood's End was the card that Martinez Medina decided to get with the second ability of Cruelty of Geeks, which is really smart. And next turn, he's able to get Atraxa from the